And we are live with
Lisa Novak.
No.
And Rosy Sullivan. Guys, don't fear, Rosy is here. Who is Rosy?
She's the lady that clears up all the confusion.
Rosy's the cleaner in the industry. Rosy is the college principal director of Australian College of Professionals.
When a real estate agent is hurt and on the ground in real estate world, she's the lady that helps them, picks them up and dusts them off and gets them going again. And why she's here tonight is because...
Boy, oh boy, we've got a lot to cover with Rosy. So we're gonna bring Rosy on in just one sec, but we're going to be talking about a whole heap of stuff. So there's a lot of talk that is going on about the new reforms. We're going to clear all of that up for all of you real estate peeps. We're going to be talking about rent.
How much can you get off your rent? Is rent going to go up? Is it going to go down? What's can I do? Can I not pay rent for 6 months and can I stay in commercial and residential? And I think we just need to just
we're just going to clear stuff up. Rosy, how are you?
Nip and tuck.
Really well, Lisa and Mark. It's great to be on with you. It's nice to I've heard your voices lately, but yeah, good to talk with you.
Thanks for putting on your red lippy as well.
I know, isn't it lovely?
Gorgeous. Well, it's a big outing for the week, right?
It's really nice.
Big outing for the week. Lots to talk about. So where do you reckon we start, Rosy? I think there's a few questions that have come in that we would like to address with you. I hope that's okay.
Yeah, of course.
All right, good.
Didn't Rosy write these questions?
Mark.
All right, they just came in.
Just before you start with the questions, I reckon it's really
honest to people, you know.
Sorry, Rosy. Mark keeps talking. What were you saying?
There's nothing new. Just going to say that we have an industry and there are basically about 49,000 agents in New South Wales. And at the moment, there's 49,000 people who are desperately dealing with all of the legislation. And there's so much happened all at once. We've had the real estate reforms that came through, which is about how real estate actually works. We've had the new residential tenancies regulations that came through both of those came through on the 23rd of March, all in the middle of COVID. So we've got new legislation around COVID and all of that creates the new legislation, the new COVID legislation. I think everybody's getting really confused or more, it's not so much confused, it's overwhelmed, I think.
I agree. And you know what happened? I think COVID, I agree. And I think COVID came along and people, I think, feel as though it overtook everything. So when COVID came along, out went colds and flus, out went, every other stomach bug and everything. You know, the minute someone has a headache, they got COVID. And then, also people think that also dismissed all of those industry reforms because COVID came along, that they were no longer going to be in place. True or false?
Absolutely false. And it was even prior to COVID hitting us so strongly, sort of mid-March, Fair Trading had already said that they were going to give the industry, those 49,000 people with licenses and certificates of registration, a 6-month, period of warn and educate. So 6 months for everybody as agents to actually get used to the new reforms, used to all the new laws, and make sure they worked out how to implement them properly into their agencies. And of course, when an agent's doing the right thing and implementing the new laws into their agency, they're offering, a good compliance service to their customers, which is obviously what Fair Trading is after, because they're a consumer affairs body at the end of the day, making sure that, the consumers are happy with the services that they're getting from whoever. And in this case, it happens to be real estate agents. So there's a 6-month, we keep hearing the word moratorium, and I guess it's the same thing for this, that Fair Trading are not going to come out and start giving people fines or agents fines. They're going to assist agents they're still going to come out and have a look at agencies, but they're going to assist them to get themselves compliant. Obviously, if they're playing trust money deals off the table, but,
So there's no grace period, Rosy. It's really that the reforms are well and truly in place as of the end of March. I think it was the 23rd of March they came in.
Yes.
Okay. and that if agents weren't doing all the things that they were meant to be doing as a result of the reforms, fair trading may be somewhat lenient, given that COVID-19 is...
Lisa, it had absolutely nothing to do with COVID-19 whatsoever. Before COVID took over our lives, fair trading had already said that there would be a 6-month period where they would be lenient and assist agents to get there. COVID-19 has had no impact on this whatsoever. It's just what they were always going to do was give that 6-month period for people to get themselves compliant.
Okay, all right, there you go. So that clears it up, guys, because there has been a lot of speculation in the industry saying the reforms, you know, like a lot. You know, we're speaking with agents all day, every day, and a lot of people are saying, you know, it didn't actually come about because of COVID. So that is absolutely well and truly false.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Mike wants to know if you can talk, Rosie.
Is it a sensible question, Mark?
Please to kick me under the table. And ever since she kicked me under the table, I stopped talking, and I just asked her for permission to talk again, so I don't get kicked under the table.
I can't guarantee that he won't get kicked under the table during.
Normally, I'll get kicked under the table 3 to 4 times.
I'm sure he'll tell you when he does.
I'm sure
you can talk.
Can I talk?
I can't hear him.
I'm not getting relevance to this girly talk. Ladies and gentlemen, okay, big one, Rosie. Okay, where the real estate agents, this is where it's really important people can understand that the real estate agents are ambassadors. They're ambassadors of property and the industry. So these people, these agents are a bit like a honeypot, and the tenants in the marketplace and the landlords in the marketplace are turning to the ambassadors of property and saying, what do we do? There's a couple of aspects to this I'd like to ask you. I guess as a principal of an agency, we protect an owner's asset. From my side of things, I think we've tried to give our staff strength, which have then given landlords and tenants confidence and taken panic out of the marketplace. But it still seems that even when you look at your moral compass, and even if you look at hardship and stuff like that, there's still a heavy reliance on what does the code say for real estate or what for landlords and tenants. So even though people are using their moral compass as agents with their landlords and with their tenants, it's still everyone really is heavily reliant on residential rentals. What do we have to do? What is the law?
There's still a lot of confusion. So, you know, obviously there's the new legislation during the period. So what can you tell us about it?
What's the law? So you're a landlord. You know, what do you want, and you're potentially a tenant. What do you want to hear from your real estate agency as to what the law? What's the interpretation of the law?
Well, the first thing is absolutely. And that's what people want to, that's what landlords and tenants want to hear from their real estate agent. You are a professional. You're not the common man in the street. The real estate agent is the person who should know all of this information. And we, you know, on the 15th of April, so last week, we got the Residential Tenancies Amendment COVID-19 Regulation 2020. Okay, so that came into play on the 15th of April. And I think up until that point, there was a lot of chat. We were hearing what Queensland was doing. We were hearing what South Australia was doing. We were hearing what the Commonwealth was saying, you know, what Jomo was coming on and saying to us, you know, in his daily briefings. And all up until there, it was about the moral compass, Mark, you're right. And it was about, you know, would a landlord look at this? Would a landlord not look at this? And vice versa. Is a tenant being reasonable, or are they just taking, you know,
advantage of the situation? Yeah.
We've heard many stories of that on both sides of the equation. Yeah. So it's really bad. But, you know, what the legislation that's been passed and is in actually says there's obviously that prohibition on landlords from giving a termination notice due to rental arrears. Obviously, termination notices can be given for other reasons. However,
there's a bit of a loophole there. You can still ask a tenant to leave a property, but you can't kick them out on rent Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely correct, but you can't give any termination notice for 60 days following the 15th of April. Okay, so it doesn't matter what the issue is, there's no termination notices from 60 days. So if you look 15th of April, roughly you just go 15th of June. I think 60 days is actually 13th, but let's go with the 15th of June and say you can't give any termination notices during that period for anything. Okay, because basically they don't want people moving. They don't want people packing up trucks and cars and grabbing friends to help them move house. And,
Rosy, we've got Bill's asking, is the legislation temporary?
Yes, we've got a 6 month. This is 6 months.
Okay, so come September, wherever that brings us to.
Let's wait and see, I guess.
Okay.
Yes,
it's temporary though.
Everywhere you look for what is the COVID-19 period that they keep talking about, particularly in commercial. We start looking at commercial property. They talk very much in that mandatory code of conduct. They talk about the COVID-19 period. Now, when you dig into that and look at the Small Business Commissioner's website, you can actually find out that they're defining the COVID-19 period as the period of time that JobKeeper allowances are being paid. Now, at this stage, they're being paid for a 6 month period. So again, that looks like it's that 6 month period that they're looking at the COVID-19, I guess, relief packages all around. And so whilst this doesn't have an end date, because I guess it can't, because who knows where we'll be in 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, they've said COVID-19 period. So, there's a whole range of, so there's that 60 days you can't issue termination notices. But this is only for what they refer to as an impacted tenant. So, there's two points.
So what does that mean?
Okay, so when you talk about what is an impacted tenant, it's a household. You've got to look at it from a household perspective, and it's where a household needs to demonstrate that they're impacted. So demonstrate meaning they have to provide you with evidence, you meaning the agent. Okay, so it's where a household has one or more rent-paying members of a household have lost employment or income or a reduction. So it's not about total loss of income or a reduction in income due to COVID-19 business closures or stand downs. Okay, so it's not because they just lost their job in January for whatever reason. It's about they've lost their job due to COVID-19, or there's one or more rent-paying members of a household have had to stop working due to the fact that they've either got COVID or they're caring for someone in a family or close family member that has COVID. So their care responsibilities or they've actually got it. So
rent-paying member, is that a leaseholder?
Not necessarily. You think about what's on a lease. And the lease might just be in one person's name, but you might have also written onto that lease that there's also another person and a couple of kids.
Yep.
So that other person's on the lease, but they've written on as being an approved person to be living in the premises. So they are a rent-paying member of the household. Obviously, the kids aren't. However, if they were adult...
Pay rent.
I don't know what that word is.
Yeah.
Your dog pays rent.
Everyone pays rent.
No free ride.
No free ride, no max.
No free ride. It comes down to, you've got to, every single case you're going to look at is going to be different, because every landlord situation is different, every tenant situation is different, and got to help our property managers, is all I can say, is because this is a time when there is no rule of one size fits all, because it is
people that are self-managing. I know Mark and Michael Bergio did a segment on it the other day. For those people that are self-managing, if you ever were trying to save money on your management fees, that's one of the only reasons I can imagine why you would self-manage.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be tricky now?
We're calling it the hurt room.
Yeah.
Well, it is. I agree with you. Why would anybody self-manage? I know a reasonable amount about property, I would hope. And, I'd be the last person who would self-manage. I try and find the most professional agent I can find.
And
it's all great when it's all going well, right? And it's like home and contents insurance.
Yeah.
it's excruciating when you've got to pay out every month or every year for your policy, right? Until you actually need it one day, and then you're like, shit, why didn't we take it, you know, the higher policy with the better insurance company? And it's the same thing with getting a property manager to manage your property. Thank goodness our property managers are super experienced and they've been here for years and years. And they're almost, I said to Mark, I almost feel like they're actually set up to be able to handle this kind of situation. Not that any of us knew that it was going to happen, but my God, it's been quite the task.
Absolutely. Rosie, on that self-managed thing that Lisa mentioned, we get a lot of calls from owners that are self-managed and they ask us for advice at the moment. And one of the ones they called up about, which I thought was very interesting, that I'd love to know if you had some input to, and if it was similar to my answer. So it's a restaurant. These client that the landlord owns beautiful premises, restaurant owner. The restaurant owner has chosen not to work. So the restaurant owner is saying, you know what, I don't really want to do Uber Eats or takeaway or Deliveroo, and I don't want to do it. So I just want to open in 6 months' time, and I think you should not charge me any rent for 6 months. Now, I've got a pretty good idea of the answer, but I'd love to not influence you and ask you for the answer.
Well, I think the first thing is
your interpretation of the law.
Yeah. Well, every tenant has a lease, which is a legal document, and you have to pay your rent. I mean, full stop. And so that comes, I guess, as the first premise. Then comes in, you know, let's put aside the tenant's moral compass right at this point in time, and say, okay, they have a legal obligation to pay their rent. So what they're saying is, I'm not even going to try and mitigate my loss on this point. So I would say, well, look, you would have to say, I mean, if they were a gym and had to close down and couldn't do anything, then that might be a different situation. But they've been, you know, they can do takeaways. They can do your Uber Eats, and as you said, so they're not mitigating their losses in any way. So they're saying, well, okay, if you did all of that, maybe your income might be down 60% or 70%. So that's when the mandatory code of conduct kicks in on commercial property, where you pay proportionate to what your loss is. And you can say, well, you're choosing that part. If you actually went down the path of mitigating your losses and did Uber Eats or whatever, you'd probably make 40% of what you were making before. Therefore, we'll cut your rent by 60%, and of that 60% that we cut, 30, you know, half of that will be a rent-free period, and the other half is you have to enter into a repayment plan. So, I mean, that would be the type of negotiation that would have to happen. And I'd say, you know, at that point, you would be taking it straight to the Small Business Commission for mediation.
Okay, so that's interesting.
So is that what happens?
Commission.
So Rose,
small business, residential goes off to fair trading.
Okay, so is that what happens when a landlord and a tenant, albeit residential or commercial, cannot come to an arrangement?
When they can't come to an arrangement, and they, you know, walk down that path of negotiation, or they're refusing to even walk down that path of negotiation, because, you know, I've heard plenty of stories of, nah, I'm not paying, and I'm not giving you any evidence of that I'm an impacted tenant, and I'm not doing anything. That's if it's a residential, it goes off to the New South Wales Fair Trading Dispute Resolution Service,
who are still open.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay. So that's another fallacy that is going around.
Yes.
That fair trading is not operating due to COVID, but they well and truly are, aren't they?
So intelligent.
Because that started with NCAT saying they wouldn't doing any face-to-face hearings.
Yes.
You know? So it's all done. It's all done over the phone, which a lot of
they're either considering it on paper. Remember what Lisa Jemison said the other week on when you interviewed her? She made it very clear that they might not be doing the face-to-face ones, but they're certainly doing it based on the papers in front of them, or they're doing phone ones. So, you know, they're still doing hearings. Obviously, they're not doing anything with rent terminations for rental arrears in the next 60 days because they're not allowed. But even before you get to the NCAT point, fair trading itself, so before you get to that jurisdiction of doing something in a tribunal, fair trading officers are actually doing their dispute resolution service. Now, this is nothing new. They've had this, the property management or the rentals dispute resolution service in there for years.
Okay. Bill's got a question.
Yeah.
He said, do you mean NCAT?
No, I don't. No, I don't.
Bill's question was, do you mean NCAT?
Yeah, no, I don't mean NCAT.
Okay, who do you mean?
For the dispute resolution service,
Yeah.
it's actually fair trading officers doing that.
Okay.
Whilst funded through fair trading and all those things, it's a jurisdiction, it's a tribunal, and one section of that deals with tenancy issues.
So just on that,
apply the same way? Do you apply the same way?
No, it's like a complaints system, and you lodge it through on Fair Trading website, and
okay.
It's actually quite difficult to find the link on their site, but they're fixing that apparently in the next couple of days, I heard this morning. But I'm happy to send you that link and you can forward it out to anyone who needs it.
So what part are NCAT playing in this?
Well, if it can't then be resolved at that dispute resolution level with
trading,
then you make a formal application to NCAT.
Okay, all right. So
during that, they're not looking at termination issues about rent payment until 60 days after the 15th of April. So mid-June. They're not looking at this till June anyway, at NCAT. So, so you're better off sitting down with a mediator from Fair Trading who's actually going to look at the issues. And they're going to want to see evidence from both sides, why the landlord is suffering and why the tenant is an impacted tenant. So if you can't get to that.
But this is really critical information, because what happened was, when the that 6-month non-termination legislation came out,
yeah.
I think the message that went out to tenants, in my opinion, was that they felt that they didn't need to pay rent and they cannot be terminated.
Yeah.
Okay.
And, at the same time, the new legislation from last week says that anyone that doesn't pay rent won't be listed on can't be listed on any tenancy databases for this COVID period.
Is that what you're referring to?
To Ticker or TRA, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So for those of you guys that are watching, Ticker is like the portal that we use if we need to blacklist a tenant. This is pre-COVID. If we need to blacklist a tenant, we can put them onto a site called Ticker.
Yep.
There's a few sites, and that's where tenants can actually get blacklisted. And you don't want to end up there as a tenant. It's not looking good for your next application. But that's not allowed to be done right now. So, but Mark and I had this conversation this morning.
Yeah, we talk a lot.
And the conversation was at 5:30 this morning that if tenants are not paying for whatever reason, can't pay, don't want to pay, whatever the situation is, that still shows up on the rental ledger.
Absolutely.
Which is set in stone. Now, a rental ledger is not something that can be changed.
Yep.
If you have not paid your rent, it will show up on your ledger.
Yes.
Now, that can't be used against you when you apply next time round if you were unable to pay for whatever reason or chose not to pay. However, the facts are the facts, Rosie. That ledger, really, if you're a landlord and you're seeing that someone was struggling to pay their rent at, a couple of months ago, you're kind of going to still raise your eyebrows, aren't you? And say, well, I'm worried if you couldn't pay it then, what's changed that you can all of a sudden pay it now?
That's right. And again, we go back to Mark's comment on moral compass. Why didn't you pay it at the, why didn't you enter into a repayment plan and not pay it at the end? When you're back at work or
if you were getting JobKeeper or JobSeeker as well.
So in summary, people's COVID ledgers for rent and people's COVID ledgers for mortgage repayments, I personally think will be reviewed in years forward. So if I'm going for a loan in December this year,
yes.
If I'm going for a new property in December this year,
I
cannot imagine that if I've got a glowing ledger as a tenant or a glowing mortgage repayments schedule for a bank, I reckon that's going to help me in my application.
Yeah.
So they're saying it can't be used against you, but I sure as hell think it can be used for you.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, when it comes down to the comes, when landlords in the future are making decisions based obviously on agents' recommendations about who to take, then, there will be, how did they go? Have they got their job back? How long have they been back in their job? All of those questions will they're already part of your application process anyway. So all of that information will be gathered.
Okay, what about this one? I'm in hospitality. No, they can't. Don't give them the property. This is in December. Don't give them the property. They're both in hospitality. Yes, yes, but their rental ledger through COVID, they never missed a payment. Oh, okay, give them the property.
So is that going to assist in forming an opinion? I would think yes.
Yeah, I think so.
Yes, and the same thing goes for the banks.
Obviously, it's not about legislation there. It's about people's perceptions.
That's right. Yeah. And the same thing goes for the banks. You freeze those mortgage repayments. On the other side, one of the banks turns around and says, they froze the payment. I mean, that could potentially form an opinion if you're looking to go for a loan. Yeah. Or as Mark said, it could work. It could work for you if you do not.
Work for you if you're able to continue with that.
I agree.
Mind you, there's plenty of stories going around about banks not being too helpful either. So I'll tell you one of the best pieces of information that people can look at, and this is good for tenants, for landlords, for agents, is on the Fair Trading website. When you go in and look at under housing, then housing and property, then you click on renting, and then the very first thing at the top of their page is COVID-19. And you click on that, and they've got a flow chart in there, which basically goes through, and I've got the flow chart in front of me here.
I love the flow chart.
I love a good flow chart. I get excited. I get quite excited by flow charts.
The word flow is just so progressive.
I'm going to leave. Flow charts, charts, graphs, all that.
Yeah, love
it. Show me your flow chart.
I'll show you yours if you show me mine. But anyway, no,
I'll post it in the comment section.
Okay. But, it actually goes through, step one, is the tenant actually impacted by COVID-19? It goes through all the things that we've already talked about, whether their household income is down, and also the household income inclusive of government assistance, if that's reduced by 25%. That's what they're looking for to be an impacted tenant.
Okay, there's a big one.
So that's inclusive of your job keeper or your job seeker or whatever government assistance is coming. So it's about the household income.
Yes.
So that's everybody who's bringing dollars into that household.
Got it.
Plus the government assistance. If that's now reduced 25% from what it was before, that's when they're an impacted tenant.
Okay.
Okay. So if that comes down as a yes, then you go down, okay, there's a moratorium, 6 months, you can't be evicted. 60 days, you can't even issue any sort of termination notice for other reasons either.
Until about the 15th of
June.
Bill's got that question. So from the 15th of June, you can knock out a 60-day notice period plus postage.
Well, everything's gone to 90 days.
Everything's gone to 90 days.
Yeah.
Termination for 90 days. But if they are not an impacted tenant,
okay,
the 6-month moratorium on terminations is off the table.
Okay.
The moratorium does not apply, is what it says here on the flow chart. The tenant will need to keep paying rent or risk termination of the tenancy.
So, Rosie, we had 5 questions for this 30-minute session, and we didn't make it past 1.
That's a problem, isn't it? I told you that would be.
Welcome to our life, everybody. Welcome to our life. This is what the last 2 months has been like.
It is.
And what else? Yeah, so Michael Edwards made a very, very interesting comment before. He said, we're all wearing the same glasses.
I think that's, thank you, Michael. I always thought he was quite perceptive.
I don't need to wear glasses. I'm so tired. I've had such a busy day today that I actually can't read the notes that are in front of me.
Have you got little hearts on the side of yours like mine? See that?
No. People that wear glasses are more intelligent.
That's is that like what judges wear? They get the wig? So like when you're the principal of the college, you get
down the end of the nose like that.
Oh my God, that's so librarian. You've got a halo happening. You look like you're like Angelic from Australian College of Professionals Angels.
Me.
Like Charlie's Angels.
Okay.
Like Charlie's Angels.
We're going to whip through
Rosie,
these ones.
How do agents work through all of these issues? They are so confusing for landlords and tenants. Yeah. What is the best way?
Honestly, I think the best thing is for agents to look at the 2 flow charts that are on the Fair Trading website. They are absolutely, we won't go back to how much we love flow charts, but they're actually really, really useful.
Okay.
And the information that's on there is really good. And it'll be good for agents.
We'll put the link. I've done amazing things with these flow charts the last couple of weeks.
We'll pop a link up.
But I reckon it should be sent out to, when landlords and tenants start actually looking at, what their situation is, send them a copy of this. Send them a copy of that flow chart and say, okay, this is how we're going to be making our decisions.
And making a note. That's how important.
So you're actually setting a framework for them. So when people are actually given a framework to start with, they're able to make better informed decisions. So give them that sort of framework because, as I said, every single situation is different. And there's lots of new forms out. All the providers of the forms, Jemison Fisher have actually written a new form for EAC, and it's about a repayment plan. So you can use that.
That's a good one.
So, whatever your form provider is as an agency, then have a look at what they offer. But I know Gemfish have done I had a look at theirs today.
How can people get that, Rosie?
Well, it depends on who your form provider is. The one that Jemison Fisher did comes via EAC because they do the forms for EAC. ADL, I've had a look at all their new forms today, and because they were released as of this morning. And again, they've got repayment plans. They've got new termination notices that bring in all the 90-day things rather than the 30, the 60, the 14, all of those sorts of things, or the 30 and the 60 really, and bringing that into the 90-day termination notices. So, and again, these are for the COVID-19 period only. This is not forever and a day. Yeah. This is just for now.
Yes.
And however long now is, we don't know, but it's just for now.
And look, I think everyone's doing a really good job. I know Padam's made a comment here saying the landlord doesn't care. Government has no money to pay rent, so what help from the government? There is help out there, and we understand that there is a small little group of people that are not getting any assistance at all.
$320 billion of help.
But, there is a lot of assistance that has come everyone's way. And a friend of ours made a comment this morning and said, his daughter that was a casual worker for 18 months is now getting like double or triple the amount of pay than what she would normally get. And I'm sure that's the case with a lot of people have got more money in their pocket than what they did have 6 months ago, and they're spending less.
But it just, I know what I'm saying, like it's some people just don't qualify, and that makes it really hard.
Yeah,
some people don't qualify. Yeah.
Yeah, that is, some people don't qualify. And you look around and you qualify for some things and you don't qualify for others. And, you're business owners, I'm a business owner, and you look around and you go, yeah, well, I qualify for that. I don't qualify for this. But
yeah, that's a good point. I was about to say that. Some businesses aren't qualifying, some tenants aren't qualifying, some people are just not qualifying.
Oh, yeah, the New South Wales, government have given out a package for small businesses. But the more I turn around, there's more and more businesses that don't qualify for that.
Well, Lisa's lucky she qualified.
And that I don't have to pay rent to Mark. And listen, let's get into some really good stuff. Tell us some goss, Rosie. We want to know. So you are the eyes and the ears on the ground with regards to real estate agencies and agents. What are some of the
retailers?
Tell us some goss. What do you see out there? Like, what are some of the horrendous mistakes that you've seen that real estate agents and real estate agencies?
No names, but
we're not going to give names.
Nothing specific, but just like broadly, what are the things over the years that brought a smile to your face? To finish off on a light note.
Where you've just like been shaking your head, going, really?
Yeah, look, we do that almost daily. We shake our heads, but in the last 12 months, possibly the most common mistake, and I just don't get it, is people who don't renew their licenses or their certificates on time. Well, certificates is off the table now because people have got that for 4 years. But for licenses, you've got one renewal date, and it's like driving your car. You've got to have a license. send you an email. Fair Trading send you a text. And, you know, the best story I think I've had in the last few months is the agent who thought he was the licensee in charge of a business and has been touting himself as the licensee in charge of a business and had let his license lapse not 1, not 2 years ago, but 10 years ago. So that was,
God.
and then found it difficult to understand that he actually needed to do something. He just thought Fair Trading would just give it back. Just because, there you go, have it back.
10 years?
10 years.
Wow.
So,
give me some other good ones.
Another good one is the agent who paid for their license renewal using a trust account check. So knowing that most people know that trust account money is, you know, not
money.
So it's the client's money. And
Landlord's money, tenants' money, landlord's money. It's not your money, and they're using someone else's money to pay for their license.
Yeah. And I mean, look, it could have been a mistake. They just picked up the wrong checkbook for those people who still use checkbooks. But, you know, I mean, get a pair of glasses like the three of us and match up and have a look at what your checkbook says.
Yeah.
Or, you know, I mean, there's classic stories. I've only seen one ever that have paid their, you know, golf club renewal membership out of the trust account. You know, we've had, the funniest story I heard from an agent. They were saying they work in a set of, you know, a small little block of shops, and out of the 5 little strip of retail shops in the little suburb, 3 of the shops in that strip of 5 are real estate agents. One's, I think, a fish shop, and the other one was like a butcher, I think, and covering all bases, I guess. And a lady went into the real estate agency and she said, I'm here to pay my rent. And she pulled out the checkbook, and she was an older lady, and they didn't know who she was, and she said her name, and she said the address of the property. They said, look, we don't manage that property. She absolutely insisted and was getting really, really irate and really, really upset and agitated, and insisted that they take the check and they give a receipt for it and all of the above. And they just thought, you know, in the end of the day, she was getting really agitated. So they took the check and they gave her a receipt and thought, we don't have this property on our books. We don't have this, you know. They thought, you know, so they followed her out and sort of watched her walk down the street, and off she went. And an agent from one of the other agencies walked out and went, that's one of our tenants. And they went, now we know where to put the money. So, I mean, thankfully, those 3 agents all talked to each other, which was really nice. And they just went, yeah, right, let's do a transaction here, and you know, here's the check. That's always a good one. I mean, yeah, one of my favourites for agents is we were running a trust accounting class, which is always fun. Everybody loves going and doing trust accounting class.
I love that. I've got a calculator sitting on the table right here. Look at this.
I loved the class that I did with John.
Trust accounting.
It was so much fun that I want to do it all over again.
Yes. Yeah.
Show me the money.
We had exactly. We had a trust account class running, and 2 of the students became quite friendly during the trust account class, and after lunch on the second day, they didn't come back.
Did they pass or fail?
Ultimately, they came back separately for different trust account classes, but apparently they hooked up and didn't come back again. So, you know, the day 3, day 4, no sign of them.
People are asking, where can they sign up to that class, Rosie?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure that it was encouraged by the trainer, but certainly they got into it. So yeah, look, we see lots of those different behaviours, and they're the funny ones. But you know, there's lots of agents who are unfortunately doing things that might not be correct.
Shagging your trust account.
Sometimes they don't, and you know, it's a matter of, there's plenty of legislation out there. It's a hard gig to get it all right, but it's a matter of, and I go back again, I love what you said right at the beginning, Mark. It's about each person's moral compass.
Yep.
Basically, as an agent, you're trying to do the right thing. And even through this COVID issue, if you're trying to do the right thing, odds on you'll get to a decent negotiation point, which is what at this very point in time, you probably want to close off on this point or soon, that this is the opportunity for agents to show what you're really skilled at.
Yeah, well said.
Because agents,
Praise the Lord.
at the end of the day, you're communicators, you're facilitators, you're negotiators. Show
Oh my God,
honestly,
never
Rosy,
a truer word. I swear, never a truer word.
No one knows what they're
agree.
doing. No one knows what they're doing. Like the Prime Minister is getting up there. He does not have the answer. It has not happened before. So I think we're all, like he says, we're all in it together. So there is this comfortable now that we're getting with, you know, because these answers, like really, how do we know? How do we know? The legislation and all that.
No, that's exactly right. But so true. I mean, those people that are skilled, and the same thing goes for sales agents, managers, principals, you know, those people that were really ahead of the curve, they're actually okay. I mean, you know, you asked me before, you know, I think, you know, you were saying, oh, you're working from home. I said, hi, oh my God, we're so busy at the moment.
Yeah.
You know, it's, I think those people that were, as I said, ahead of the curve, are going to come out of this okay.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I mean, I think it's the time for agents to show their real skills rather than, you know, sometimes it can be a bit of a churn and just, you know, let's do the same thing again and again, which is a bit different for you guys at Novak, of course. But many agents, you know, they're just doing the same and getting the results and doing it well. But I think now's the chance to show the real skills that good real estate agents have, whether they're in property management or in sales. It's about that. I guess it's as I said, it's about the negotiation, the facilitation, and the connection that they can have with somebody and have that communication point. And if you're doing that, you're negotiating an outcome that is going to be fair on both sides. And as ScoMo said to us, we've all got to wear a bit of pain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Rosy, there's a gentleman in the bedroom next to you, and his name he's written a message on here saying bring it on. So it's a John Sullivan, bring it on. He's written that message to you. So I'm feeling a bit awkward.
Feet up in front of the TV, probably watching what ScoMo's got to say.
You know what it is. You know what I know what John got excited about.
Bring it on.
It was 2 words.
Bring it on.
Trust accounting. That was what got him excited.
Yeah.
Trust accounting.
My man.
Your man wants you to bring it on, and he's in the room next door. We better let you go so you can.
Just quickly, we're going to wrap up, guys. If anyone's got any other questions, now's the time to ask. There's been lots and lots of questions coming through.
Sorry,
but just to
we couldn't
wrap
answer
up,
all of them.
Please, if you want to flick any through to me, because I can't see the questions, but if you want to flick any through to me that you want me to answer later, that's more than happy to.
Thank you. They're all coming through here. But where can people, if people want to do their license?
Yes.
If people want to sign up and get into the real estate industry,
yes,
they can contact you guys. You guys are the best trainers in the business.
Number 1 in the world.
Without a doubt. How do we know? Because we use you.
Yeah.
And I can tell you now there's courses and there's courses. And my other life used to be in private education. And I can tell you now there is a big difference between training institutions. What you can get online, your $99 sign-up license course, and what you guys are doing are miles apart. And if right now, the skills that we were just talking about, if that isn't evidence of this, then I don't know what is.
And I'll tell you what, now for those guys who, particularly the ones in real estate or anyone on Job Seeker, there's actually government funding. We have access to some government funding where they can actually do their whole licensing course if they're a job seeker. You know, for $240. So yeah, obviously there's some eligibility criteria, but you know, basically and to get into the industry.
How much cost?
So about 3,000.
Oh wow. My God.
That's huge.
But yes.
You can't just get a certificate these days. You need that license to operate as a real estate agent.
You get to start with, and then you've got 4 years to get your license. So you can work your way. You start with the first module, but if you come in on that, if you're a job seeker, now's the time to get into it. Whether you get a job even halfway through the course, doesn't matter. At the point of time of enrolment, you're in for $240.
As John would say, bring it on.
Wow, that is unreal. That is unreal. So guys, But we cannot recommend this college highly enough.
Yes.
You know, if you're looking for getting your license, getting your certificate, whatever it is that you want to do, upskill, do some of your modules, these guys do it. They do online as well as face-to-face, or face-to-face will be back soon enough.
Yeah, we would do webinars to cover up for that. Like we've got our leadership and management course we're running via webinars in the evening. So, you know, we're doing lots of different things.
You know what? You guys were doing this before. It's not like all of a sudden you have to work it out now.
It is. So, you know, it's nothing new. It's just more people are now doing online. And we used to call people the online refugees. They hook in online because they say, yeah, we'll do that at night time. And then sit around and go, you know what, we want to come to class. And real estate is the type of industry where people need to be in front. You know, those of us in the industry, we all like that interaction. That's why we're in this industry.
And also, I did my CPD points with you, Rosy, not very long ago, and they were the best scones I've ever eaten in my entire life. I haven't forgotten them.
Now, I personally didn't make those, but I do make a good scone. I'm just saying.
Hold you to it. We're going to hold you to it. All right, guys, I think that's it. I think that's a wrap.
That's a wrap. So, guys, I'll do some notes on this and put in there. Rosie will have a look at the comments and put some comments in there. We'll do a bit of work over the next 24 hours on those comments.
Yeah.
Helping people out. We'll put up those PDFs from
the government. We're going to put up some links
here
to the fair trading stuff as well.
Fair trading comments. Yeah. And guys, I do have to say, legislation in what we've been through is an anchor. But at the end of the day, there's a boat that's floating in the water. That boat is the moral compass, work ethic, and our true north. So I think as tenants, landlords, and real estate agents, I know we've got that anchor that we're all relying on. But at the end of the day, we've all just got to get through it.
I actually just finishing up, those reforms actually have come along at a really good time, because I think anyone working in the real estate industry right now realizes more than ever we need to know our stuff.
Yeah, we do.
We never have before, because I don't think this will be the last pandemic we're ever going to have. I think we're going to be going through a lot of deep water, and it's more important than ever. So
I think John's going to create a pandemic tonight, Rosie.
John just wants his dinner, Mark. That's all John wants.
Oh, is that what you call
that's
it?
what he was calling it. I feel awkward. I feel more awkward.
I thought the red lipstick was for us, but that's all right. Rosie, thank you so much for joining us. We love you. You guys are the best.
Always here for the ride with you guys.
Thank you so much.
See ya. I hope we helped everyone tonight. See ya.
See ya.
See ya. Bye.